It's the case of mutual deception as Mercury slows down and goes retrograde in the sign of Sagittarius on Monday, November 25th. Why mutual deception, you might ask? That is because Mercury is in its detriment in Sagittarius, and the ruler of Mercury is Jupiter, currently in its detriment in Gemini. So there's going to be a lot of confusion, a lot of crossed wires, and misunderstandings. Let's take a closer look and break it down for all 12 signs. My name is Anastasia, and I'm a traditional Western astrologer specializing in natal, relationship, and predictive readings. If you want to show your support, please leave me a like, a comment, subscribe, and press that notification bell. Watch more of my videos or say thank you by buying me a tea, a coffee, a piece of cake, whatever your heart desires. Thank you for being here. And if you're new, welcome. I hope you enjoy my content just as much as people who have been here for a while. Before we dive in, if you're looking for support and guidance, book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. I offer a variety of readings, natal, predictive, relationship consultations, and my 2025 readings are actually currently discounted. You can save $20 off the year ahead readings, or you can save $40 and get a recording reading in the shop section of my website. So on my website, you can also find my 2025 astrology planner. This one has 223 pages filled with insights about transits, about lunar signs and phases, journaling pages, everything you need to know in order to make your year better. I even included dates that are good for love, challenging for relationships, and lucky dates. So it could be a helpful tool for everyone who is looking for support. And on my website, you can also find a variety of products I create. Since we are talking about Mercury going retrograde, I'd like to highlight my Mercury in Virgo 2 candles. This is the candle or oil that captures Mercury in the sign of rulership. Very precise, very clear, very analytical, and straight to the point. Mercury in Virgo people are gifted with clear, powerful speech, and so this candle can be a gift for you during the Mercury retrograde time, helping you speak with focus, precision, and express yourself, avoid misunderstandings, help with deliveries, transportation, travel. Definitely check out my website and pick one up. So let's talk about Mercury going retrograde. Mercury retrograde is a common phenomenon. It happens 3 times, sometimes 4 times a year. And this one lasts from November 25th until December 15th, going from 22 degrees 40 minutes Sagittarius all the way back into 6 degrees 23 minutes Sagittarius. So if you have planets between 6 and 22 degrees Sagittarius, Gemini, Virgo, and Pisces, this retrograde will affect you the most, especially if you have those planets in Sagittarius, right? Because Mercury is traveling over your personal planets. And you will look at the nature of the planet. If it's Mercury going over your natal Mercury, then maybe your communication needs examination. If it's Venus, maybe it's about your relationships. And then you might also consider the nature of the houses that are ruled by those planets. Mercury has been in its shadow from November 7th, so every aspect that we've experienced between November 7th and November 25th gets to be repeated. For example, we've had Mercury square Saturn on November 12th and Mercury opposite Jupiter on November 18th, and those will come back around again and repeat on December 4th, December 6th. More on that in a minute. But let's just touch on the usual Mercury retrograde significations. Mercury is the planet of communication. It's the planet of the mind. It rules 3 comms, as Samuel Reynolds likes to say: communication, commerce, and commuting. And so when Mercury is moving backwards, it is actually the time we're getting to slow down and review those matters. So we get to review our communication, our commerce or our intellectual pursuits, right? And our commuting. So there might be a need to update your car or a need to fix your computer, maybe change your phone, rewrite some of your documents. So people see it as this sort of negative experience when technology doesn't work and trains are delayed and packages get lost. But At the same time, it's actually your opportunity to examine what's working and what's not working and maybe recommit to it. Mercury retrograde might bring messages from exes. It might bring, like I said, technology breaking down, miscommunication. So check who you're sending your messages to and double check the spelling. Sometimes there are delays with trains and planes and transit. So make sure you're bringing all of your documents and that you're allowing extra time for travel, extra time for packages. It can bring mental fog and sort of a sense of like lacking clarity. So, you know, a lot of things that are meant to slow us down, but maybe feel sort of challenging and difficult and frustrating. I have told you that this is a mutual deception kind of retrograde, which we have mutual reception in astrology. That is when two planets are placed in the signs that they rule. For example, your Mars is in Sagittarius and your Jupiter is in Aries. So your Jupiter is ruled by Mars and your Mars is ruled by Jupiter. And so the two are in the signs that can see each other, right? Jupiter and Sag and Aries are both fire signs. They're relatively they're relatively decent. They're sort of neutral in strength in those signs, but they're supportive of one another. It's like staying in your friend's house and you have a straight line to them. You can call them and be like, hey, where do you keep your towels? When the planets are in mutual deception, it means that they are connected, but they're both weak. It's like the drunk trying to lead the blind, or the deaf trying to lead the blind, right? Like there is one doesn't hear, one cannot see. Well, I guess the deaf can sort of lead the blind quietly. But let's say it's two drunk people trying to lead each other, right? And nobody knows. So Mercury in Sagittarius is in its detriment. Mercury in Sag has a lot of powerful qualities. It's very passionate. It's a great storyteller. It's very charming and open-minded and philosophical and idealistic, but it struggles with facts sometimes. It can struggle with being concise. It can struggle, it can go off of like goals and impressions and ideas, but not always check all the details, sort of forget certain facts, and be a little bit more like, passion, adventure-oriented versus sort of factual. And then the ruler of Mercury in Sagittarius is Jupiter, currently in Gemini, which is in its own detriment because Jupiter actually wants to have the big picture and wants to believe one thing and wants to have like a clear goal. Because let's say you have Mercury in Sagittarius ruled by Jupiter in Pisces, right? The two will be in a square, and so they will have a tense aspect, but Jupiter will be in the sign of rulership. So even if Mercury in this case is in detriment and it's missing the facts, Jupiter in Pisces is at least capable to like sort of alleviate some of that because it's in the sign of rulership. But with Jupiter being in Gemini, ruling this Mercury, there's definitely like Mercury in Sag is like, so what's our purpose? And Jupiter in Gemini is in detriment because Gemini likes to separate and likes to see multitude sides of the story. It doesn't want to choose one, right? So Jupiter in Gemini ends up being like, what is the truth? I believe this and I believe that. And once again, it could be a great placement for Montessori school, approaching every child with the unique way, for, sort of intellectual pursuits and being open-minded. But when one is trying to talk to the other, it's like, where do you keep the towels? And Jupiter is like, but do you want the towels? Maybe you need napkins, or maybe you need, and like you're standing there dripping, and like the Jupiter can decide what to give you. So there is, when we're talking about the retrograde happening, it just means that the amount of confusion, the amount of uncertainty, the amount of possibilities is likely to be very high, and the amount of answers will maybe not so forthcoming. So it might take you extra time to figure it out. So be warned. Some of the important dates during the retrograde period, we have Mercury opposite Jupiter on December 4th. This is a repeat of the transit from November 18th. And it can bring good luck, optimism, but also likely a danger of overextending yourself, maybe saying yes to things that you don't have the authority or knowledge or time to do. So be careful, try to narrow things down and focus on one project, one thing at a time. December 5th is Mercury Cazimi, which is lovely. It's the turning point of the retrograde. It can actually bring some clarity. Followed by December 6th, we have Mercury square Saturn. So you get an insight, but then you run into a roadblock. And we've had Mercury square Saturn on November 12th. So reflect back. Maybe there were some clues on what this might be about. December 13th, Mercury sextiles Venus in Aquarius. So this could be supportive for making amends, having important conversations, getting along with people, with people you maybe have wronged. Let's say you send someone a message accidentally that wasn't meant to be for them. So Mercury sextile Venus can help you improve that, right? Help you sort of work through that. And then December 15th, Mercury goes direct. So we'll get through it, but it's also, this retrograde is also challenging because Mars also goes retrograde on December 6th. So between the 6th and the 15th of December, we're going to have two planets that are personal planets retrograde at once. So it's like, I know it's hard to stop your life, and you can't, right? Life goes on. You have things to do. You have duties, your job, meetings, etc. But there might be some slowdowns with this one for sure. So let's take a look at the retrograde through the lens of 12 zodiac signs and break it down for you. And as always, if you're looking for personal guidance, you have questions that a one-on-one consultation with an astrologer will answer, questions that only a consultation with an astrologer may answer, book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. I do year-ahead readings, like I said in the beginning of this video. Those are discounted, predictive readings, year-ahead solar return, natal chart, and relationship readings. So all of that on my website. So let's start with Aries rising. For Aries rising, this retrograde goes through the 9th house, right? So it's affecting your 9th house, and you may notice certain delays, misunderstandings, miscommunications involving education. Maybe you have an exam coming up and it gets rescheduled, or you actually realize that in order to graduate you need like 3 more credits, and so you need to take another class. There might be, a teacher who sort of comes back and tells you that you need to rewrite this paper, you need to retake this exam. You may realize on your own that you require a little bit more education and have to go back to something you once studied. 9th house is also the house of travel. So with the retrograde in the 9th house, you might be traveling back to somewhere you used to be already. Or you're maybe dealing with some kind of challenges involving travel, right? Let's say you're moving or you're going on a trip and you need to rebook your ticket, or the plane gets, the time that your plane was supposed to leave gets changed, and that shortens your layover time. So having to figure out travel matters, having to rewrite some papers, refile some documents, reapply for visas are all possibilities here. So stay patient. And if you're looking for more guidance, book a reading at anastasiadoesastrology.com. For Taurus rising, Mercury retrograde affects your 8th house, and 8th house is the place of shared finances, debts, loans, taxes, inheritance, insurance payments. So with Mercury retrograde here, you're maybe having to go back to a payment or a bill that you thought you paid. Something shows up in your peripheral vision and you're like, oh, I forgot that this payment is due. So having to deal with these matters is quite likely. Maybe, maybe it's time to renew your insurance or refinance your mortgage. So all of that could be a great time. It could be a great time to sort of redo some of your agreements with other people. 8th house might affect your partner's finances as well. 8th house Mercury retrograde. It might suggest that your partner maybe is going back to an old job, or they are considering, maybe like I don't know, maybe they're like going back to school and their finances are changing as well. So there might be some kind of confusion and uncertainty when it comes to that. And I also find 8th house deals with our agreements with other people. So it's, you know, whether your relationship, romantic or professional or partnership, or your relationship with your mother, who's like a partner to you, whether it feels fair, whether you are on equal footing, or one of you gives more than receives and feels frustrating. So Mercury retrograde in the 8th house can definitely be the time when you discuss those things. 8th house is the dark house, and so it involves things we often sweep under the rug and prefer not to talk about. Let's say your friend owes you money or your mother owes you money, and you try to be understanding, but then it's, you know, in the long run, it gets frustrating. So this could be a good time to air things out, clear the air, right, and discuss all of that. If you're looking for personal guidance, book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com, and pick up my Mercury in Virgo 2 candle to help you navigate the retrograde. For the curious Gemini rising, Mercury retrograde will affect your 7th house. And where else would we talk about exes coming back if not here? So keep an eye out. The retrograde in the 7th house is very much the time when they can claw back into your life and try to mess with your head. So someone from your past may be reappearing in your life. It can also be the time when your relationship faces some type of roadblocks, delays, miscommunications, old fights, right? If we're talking about like the past, things that you thought were over and done and laid to rest might reappear and need another look. And anything that feels unfair, that feels sort of undiscussed in or like not discussed in a relationship. The ruler is Jupiter in Gemini in your 1st house, and so you're thinking a lot about personal growth and expansion and maybe like new beginnings, new career beginnings, new interests, new projects you're pursuing. And so maybe you need to discuss it with your partner to make sure that you can do both, your relationship and those things. It can also be a great time to renegotiate any contracts. You know, let's say if we're talking about like your business agreement or even your salary, any kind of contractual obligation or contractual agreement that you have with other people, the retrograde could be a great time to sort of do research and then come back and say like, here's what I've discovered, let's maybe revisit this. Please share how this resonates. If you're looking for personal guidance, book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com, and pick up my Mercury in Virgo 2 or Mercury Cazimi candle. Both of these capture the strong Mercury in the sign of rulership. Mercury Cazimi is the Gemini Mercury, Mercury in Virgo. It says so in the name, Virgo. And this could be a lovely tool, especially Cazimi. I'd recommend Cazimi. It could be a great tool for you in order to, like, you know, when Mercury is retrograde, we struggle communicating. Our mind might be a bit sluggish. We're more likely to miscommunicate or make mistakes. And so these candles can actually help bring more clarity and more focus and productivity into your life. So check out my website for that. If you are the lovely Cancer rising, Mercury retrograde is happening in your 6th house, and it is ruled by Jupiter and Gemini in your 12th. So here we're looking at the house of work, health, and service. And with Mercury retrograde, you're maybe dealing with some kind of professional situation that is stagnant. You know, you had a job offer and it gets delayed, it gets postponed, or you're waiting for a project to start or for someone to send you information and they're taking their sweet time and things are not moving. So having to find ways of dealing with frustration are possibilities here. You know, having to figure out how to deal with things not going your way is likely. Opportunities to examine your habits and your health, your diet, your routines, your exercise routines. Maybe go to a doctor and revisit a health situation that you've been neglecting are all likely here. Having to address any miscommunications, misunderstandings with your coworkers, or even deal with a situation your pet is going through. You may notice that you're sort of handling matters involving your pet much more at this time. But it could be, it could be the time when things slow down. And yes, it feels frustrating, but it actually gives you a time to put some finishing touches and maybe rewrite something, redo something, and like give a project more attention because things are temporarily slowed down. Please share how this resonates. If you're looking for personal guidance, book a reading on my website, AnastasiaDoesAstrology.com, and pick up my Mercury in Virgo 2 candle. It can help you find clarity, focus, and avoid misunderstandings and miscommunications during this retrograde time. For the lovely Leo rising, Mercury goes retrograde in your 5th house. So this could mean someone from your past knocking on your door and demanding your attention, right? Somebody you haven't thought about, somebody you haven't spoken to, probably someone you used to date reappearing in your life. They might reappear quite physically, like you see them, or they might reappear in your thoughts. And the advice is always do not rush to reach out or take them back, because sometimes it's driven by a temporary glitch in the matrix and you don't really want to do it. It could be the time when your creative projects slow down, you're lacking inspiration, you're not quite sure which direction you want to take it. Maybe it could be a lovely time to go back to the drawing board and remind yourself what inspired you to start in the first place. Maybe pick up an old project, revisit a creative project you sat down and forgot about, or revisit your childhood hobbies and things that used to get you excited. So finding ways to bring inspiration into your creative life through those sort of opportunities to reconnect with your inner child, as well as because it rules your romantic relationship. When Mercury's retrograde here, you may notice more misunderstandings, miscommunications, maybe a lack of spark in a relationship. And so the retrograde can very much be the time when you have some honest conversations and look back at what once attracted you to your partner. Maybe go on some fun adventures together. Maybe, pursue some kind of social cause together. The ruler is Jupiter in your 11th. So like go out with friends, do something fun, go on a trip, go volunteering, do something that's not just good for your relationship, but good for the world at large. And if you're looking for personal guidance, book a reading on my website, AnastasiaDoesAstrology.com. My year ahead readings are currently discounted, so you can save and find out what awaits you in 2025. If you are the charming and intellectual Virgo rising, the retrograde affects your 4th house. So with Mercury retrograding in the 4th, this could be a very healing time with you having conversations with family members, revisiting old sort of, wounds, maybe healing, maybe addressing something that hasn't been processed, experiencing realizations and therapy or through those conversations. You might be moving somewhere you used to live, or a family member comes to visit you, or some kind of, sudden twist, turn, delay might happen in your home and in your family. Traveling back to see family, right? We're like right at Thanksgiving here. So traveling back, feeling nostalgic, talking about childhood, talking about past is quite likely. You may experience delays connected to moving, or delays connected to your home improvement project. Maybe your redecoration, rebuild, remodel slows down, and you need to, like, let's say you run out of tiles and the store no longer carries it, and now you have to figure out what are you going to do with your bathroom, right? Like, are you gonna go with some funky half one tile, half other pattern, or whatever else it might be? It might be the time when you are looking at your space and feeling that it doesn't work for you anymore. Maybe you need to replace some of the furniture, or you need to repaint your walls, So it's actually quite a good time for those kind of things, like investing into making improvements in the home and reconnecting with family, reconnecting with the past, healing are all highlighted here. If you're looking for personal guidance, book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. I do natal, predictive, relationship readings, and I also highly recommend my Mercury in Virgo 2 candle. You are Mercury ruled. This is your Mercury, and during retrograde, we might feel confused, we might miscommunicate, deal with delays, misunderstandings, and this candle can bring focus, precision, clarity, and speed things up, help you avoid the pitfalls of the retrograde. Mercury in Virgo 2. Check out my website for that. For the beautiful Libra rising, Mercury retrograde is affecting your 3rd house. So here we're talking about schedule. And we're talking about scheduling issues. You have a meeting, your client doesn't show up, you have to reschedule, you traveled to see them, now you need to go back. You realize that your Zoom app is not working, or you need to pay for some of your technology. This could be the time when you have, 3rd house is very mercurial on some level. It's full of messages, emails, contacts, connections. So Mercury retrograde here may bring up a lot of those glitches, issues with cars, printers, scanners, internet, meetings, all of that kind of stuff. And so it could be annoying, but it can also be an opportunity to streamline things, right? Declutter your workspace, update your internet, upgrade your car, anything you need to do. There might be more miscommunications at this time, and maybe some kind of, a need to revisit a conflict or address a situation with a sibling. If you've been having, a difficulty communicating with them, this could be the time when you clear the air potentially. Rewriting things, retaking exams, I can also see as a possibility here. Improving communication, which is what we talked about with having conversations with siblings, but also just maybe even dealing with issues involving neighbors, having an old neighbor reach out to you, or having maybe like a sibling is going through a bit of a difficult situation, that you are there to help them understand. Watch out for Mercury retrograde sort of increasing your nervous anxiety and making your life more sort of confusing and frustrating. So try to meditate and build in pockets of, relaxation time into your life. If you're looking for personal guidance, book a reading at anastasiadoesastrology.com. And I highly recommend my Mercury Kazemi candle for you guys. This is Mercury in Gemini, Mercury in the sign of rulership, and it could be perfect for the retrograde. It can bring more clarity, help your mind be more precise and accurate in your judgment and your decisions. Mercury Kazemi. Find it on my website. Moving on to the Scorpio rising, for you the retrograde is happening in the 2nd house, and here we're looking at your finances and values. And so in terms of money, Mercury retrograde in the 2nd house might be the time you are budgeting. You are reviewing your spendings, you are reviewing your finances and thinking about a wedding coming up, a child being born, going back to school, starting a business, right? It's a really great time to kind of slow down and take stock of all of your investments and stocks and finances. It is the time I would encourage you not to spend too much or not to make really big financial decisions, because sometimes things and decisions made during retrograde get turned around. It's very often also happens that you make some money and then immediately you spend the money. You thought you had an extra grand laying around, but then you needed to fix your car, for example. So it's best to avoid making major purchases. Of course, if it's something you've been looking at for a while and researching for a while, then you can, just go for it. 2nd house also rules your values and your priorities. So this retrograde may kind of create a sense of uncertainty around those things. 2nd house is finances also. So maybe you're questioning whether you are compensated enough, whether you're happy with your job. Maybe you're thinking about getting a promotion, or you're actually thinking about going back to another job. So values involving a job, but also values involving what is truly important to you. Is it maybe spiritual health? Is it your mental health? Is it your relationships, your job? And maybe this retrograde will offer you opportunity to like reallocate resources and reinvest into things that you quite, value the most. If you're looking for more guidance, book a reading at anastasiadoesastrology.com and pick up my Mercury in Virgo 2 candle to help you maximize the retrograde and actually avoid the challenges. It can bring focus, clarity, and precision to your speech and your writing and help you navigate the pitfalls and avoid miscommunications, delays, and challenges of the retrograde. If you are a Sagittarius rising, Mercury goes retrograde in your first house, the place of health, identity, your body, and image. And so when Mercury is retrograding here, you're asking yourself questions whether your style, your look reflects who you truly are. This could be the time when you're considering coloring your hair, cutting your hair, changing your skincare, changing your wardrobe. I would urge you against any rash decisions, things that you haven't thought about for a while. Let's say you suddenly decide to get a whole back tattoo and you've never wanted one and the retrograde makes you want to get it. Maybe wait until the retrograde is over on December 15th so you have a bit more kind of momentum and, more power behind your decisions, because the retrograde decisions sometimes have the power to sort of turn around and we turn around on them. It might also be the time when you're feeling a little bit insecure and maybe lost in life. You don't fully know where you're going. The ruler of this retrograde is Jupiter in Gemini in your 7th house. And so a lot of your focus right now is connected to your relationships. And so the desire to make a change to your style or your look or your appearance might be inspired by what your partner is expecting of you or telling you. And that's where you're very much encouraged to separate your sense of self from your relationship, right? And it's okay to feel confused. It's okay to not know everything. The retrograde is the time to kind of slow down and ask yourself important questions and maybe reflect on who you were and what makes you happy. And so if you're feeling lost in life, use this time to actually slow down, right? And reconnect with yourself. It could be a great time for therapy or journaling or reading books, maybe doing an astrology consultation to get more connected with your true self, to see what your chart has to say about who you are. Talking to a therapist, like I said, reading a book on sort of a self-help book, all of that kind of stuff. And maybe consult a stylist if you're thinking about changing your appearance or your style too. If you're looking for personal guidance, book a reading at anastasiadoesastrology.com. My year ahead readings are currently discounted, and you can also get a natal chart or relationship consultation on there. And I highly recommend getting my Mercury Kazemi candle. It highlights strong Mercury in Gemini, in the sign of rulership, and it can help you find more clarity, improve your communication, bring ease to your interactions during retrograde and outside of the retrograde as well. For the lovely Capricorn rising, Mercury retrograde is happening in your 12th house, which is the place of bad habits, self-defeating tendencies, your blind spots, your past and healing. And so Mercury retrograde here can bring up an old wound. Something might trigger you, right? It might be something as simple as seeing a child playing with their grandparent. Maybe it reminds you about your grandfather and you realize that maybe you've never processed the loss of a grandparent. So opportunities to address some wounds and examine past challenges. It can also remind you of a past relationship, of someone you maybe haven't fully released, and offer a chance to let them go through therapy potentially. It might also reveal how much your life lacks balance, right? The ruler is Jupiter in Gemini in your 6th house, and chances are Jupiter is making your life really, really busy. But Mercury in Sagittarius might encourage you to get away or remind you of the beauty of travel and meditation and healing, like going to do ayahuasca or connecting with your body somehow. So needing to figure out a way how to balance your busy life with your spiritual pursuits is quite likely here. And like I said, you know, like this is being the house of bad habits and self-defeating tendencies, Mercury retrograde in the 12th could be a great time to gain clarity on the habits you have that do not serve you, become more aware of your thoughts and the words you say yourself, to speak to yourself, and perhaps let go of those unhealthy patterns that make your life more frustrating. If you're looking for personal guidance, book a reading at anastasiadoesastrology.com. I do relationship year ahead and natal chart readings, and pick up my Mercury Cazimi candle to help bring clarity, focus, and forward momentum into your life. Mercury in Virgo, too, is also really great. Both can be great remedies for the retrograde, helping you avoid the confusion and improve your communication skills during this period. Moving on to Aquarius rising. This retrograde affects your 11th house, the house of friendships, networks, hopes, and dreams. And in terms of friendships, Mercury retrograde can reveal some type of challenges in the friendships. Maybe a friend is struggling and you're expecting things of them and they cannot deliver. And so you are becoming more aware of their downsides maybe and accepting them or helping them. You might also hear back from an old friend or realize that a friendship needs to be changed, right? Like needing to have honest conversations with people you call friends is quite likely. You might also be examining your social engagements and how much time you spend helping other people or, you know, facilitating other people's lives and spending time with your friends. And so this could be a great opportunity to reflect, right, and prioritize and figure out what is actually worth your time versus what is not. And then 11th house represents your dreams and your hopes and aspirations that involve other people, right? So Mercury retrograde here could be the time when you feel a little bit lost and you're maybe feeling like you don't have quite a strong sense of community, or you don't have a strong direction in life. And so it's a great time to kind of go back to the drawing board and maybe reconnect with people that have always been there for you, even if it's just one person. You know, rethink your goals and values and priorities. Like if, let's say you have a dream, but you're facing a dead end and you're not getting there. So maybe this retrograde is the time to like take a step back and rethink your strategy, rethink your approach, rethink once again the people that you're asking for help. Maybe you can figure out somebody else or some other way to go there that you haven't tried yet. And 11th house also represents your involvement with your community and how connected and plugged in you are. And so the retrograde might also offer you a chance to review those things and figure out like a better way to get more involved maybe and help other people. If you're looking for personal guidance, book a reading at anastasiadoesastrology.com. My 2025 readings are currently discounted, so get one of those. You can also pick up my natal chart reading or relationship consultation to find out how to make your relationship better. And definitely get my Mercury Cazimi candle. It highlights your 5th house of romance, pleasure, and children, can bring clarity, inspiration, and help you avoid the miscommunications and delays connected to the retrograde. For the beautiful Pisces rising, Mercury retrograde is highlighting your 10th house. And so here we're looking at the house of career, status, and reputation. And so with Mercury retrograde here, the obvious, downsides are misunderstandings with bosses. Your boss says something and you're like, that's not fully clear. I don't understand it, but I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to show up as stupid, right? You're afraid. So you don't say something and then you don't fully know the task. Or your boss is going through something that is affecting your work because maybe they're like not showing up or overloading you with duties. Or they promised you a raise and it's not coming, so there might be delays. Any projects you're working on might also stall. You're waiting for people to get back to you and they're not doing it. You know, it could really be kind of frustrating. It could actually make you question whether you are in the right place, whether you're happy with what you're doing. It could also be the time when you are looking back at the job you once had and maybe reapplying. Speaking of things that are good to do during the retrograde, reapplying for a job is very much a good time. You might actually even hear from an old boss or somebody you used to work with. So take this time to kind of examine whether your job fulfills your expectations and whether you feel happy with where you are. And if you don't, maybe it's the time to reflect on like what once got you excited. What was the main reason you got into finance, right? Maybe you wanted to help people buy their first home. And so maybe it's not about quitting your job and like becoming unemployed, but maybe it's about talking to your boss and being like, remember when you first hired me, this is what I wanted to do. So can we please find ways to do it? So enjoy the retrograde, and as always, if you're looking for personal guidance, book a reading at anastasiadoesastrology.com. Also pick up my Mercury and Virgo 2 candle. It can help you communicate better. It can ease the stress of the retrograde, bring clarity, focus, precision, and improve your communication, improve your writing. I use this all the time when Mercury is retrograde. I like don't write my horoscopes or anything without it. So definitely take advantage of it. Check out my website, book a reading at anastasiadoesastrology.com. And thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Do not be afraid of the retrograde. We go through them all the time, right? It's worth knowing what might happen, but it's not worth stopping your life and giving up on all the fun when Mercury is retrograde. Thank you for being here, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.